Gathered here today, and we invited Detective Watkins to come in and share some information with you for a couple of reasons. First, it would be our goal to help eliminate any mistakes that you might make using social media. Not just the normal bullying or sending things that you shouldn't, but just overall safety. So that is why you're here. Most of the people that are chatting right now while I'm speaking probably need the message the most. So guys, do yourself a favor and listen up. Having said that, we asked Detective Watkins to come here prior to break, because a lot of you might have a little more time on your hands than usual. Okay? So we want you to not only hear this message, I want you to digest the message. I want you to understand the do's and the don'ts, and the things that you are definitely old enough to understand. This is not above any of you. You're our 8th graders. You're our oldest, right? Our oldest class. So you should definitely hear this the clearest, behave the best, and take this valuable information with you, okay? When he asks for you to raise your hand and join in and ask questions, do so. But please be respectful to the people sitting next to you, because you may not want to hear it. Chances are you need it, but the person next to you may want to. Okay? So without further ado, welcome to Veterans Memorial School Detective Watkins.
Good afternoon, 8th grade. Good afternoon, 8th grade. Good afternoon, 8th grade. There's people over here who's too cool to say anything. And I heard a little bit of somebody else trying to say, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. I appreciate the invite, and I'm glad I was able to make it out today. And a little bit about myself is, as you already heard, I work at the Prosecutor's Office. My name is Detective Watkins. My specialties are anything technological, so computer, mobile forensics, network administration, psychology, things of that nature. Those are the things I specialize in. On my side, I also I teach at a few different colleges, so I get to experience a lot of different personalities and a lot of different ways of learning things. And one thing that I've learned throughout my years and continue is that I learned more from all of you than you will from me. Why? Because there's, what, 150 of you and only one of me? So there's always going to be something that you think of that I forget about, or something that you learned before I learned. So at any point in time, if you feel the need to interject, by all means, raise your hand and let me know. And at the same point in time, I will do the same with you. I also hold you, as 8th graders, to a higher standard than I do the 5th, 6th, and 7th graders. With that said, I have 3 girls of my own, 19, 12, and 7. My 12-year-old starts high school next year, so it's going to be a very, yeah, it's a long story. It's going to be a very weird time for her. So if anybody here is going to CC Tech, by all means, look out for her while she's there. She'll be a little one. Now, the reason I am here today is to speak to you about social media habits, things of that nature. Unfortunately, bad things do happen. If they didn't, I wouldn't be here and I would probably be out of a job. But with that said, I am going to push 2 rules that I want you to remember as much as I can possibly push them out today. The first rule is the NANA rule. And the NANA rule states, if there's something you have to post, something you have to send, something you have to share, something you have to say online, show it to Nana. And Nana is what I call my grandma. And my grandma was old school. I'm from Brooklyn, and old school Brooklyn, we don't play. You made Nana angry, she put her hands on you. You don't make Nana angry. You don't have to clap for it. But with that said, carry a gun for crying out loud for a living, and I still will not offend Nana. So for me, it's a big deal. And I ask you to treat your nanny, your guardians, or whoever else is looking after you the same way. If you are too embarrassed to show them, don't post it, send it, share it. And the reason is because of rule number 2. What goes up, it does not come down. When dealing with the internet, when dealing with cell phones and communication, telecommunications, all of these things leave a trail. And on top of it, everything we think that is gone does not go away. Excuse me. All the things we do and try to hide does not go away. It can be very easily recovered. Now, I have to go through a mountain of paperwork, and I have to go through a ton of permissions, and I have to get court orders, and I have to get subpoenas, and I have to go every which way to get anything done, just to recover data. But I'm not the only one recovering data out there. There are people who just simply don't care, who are what we know as criminals, a lot of them. But there are also people who do things for fun, under the radar, and they take everything we give them, everything you give them, and they save it. Now, of course, during the course of the presentation, if you have questions, please raise your hand. Let me know. We'll go through them because every question is valid. On screen here is a quote from a website that I frequent. And let's face it, part of my job is I get paid to surf the internet. It's actually quite fun. But this quote is from a small website you might have heard of called worldstarhiphop.com. And on this website, for those who may not have ever heard of it, is a bunch of people doing stupid things. Whether it's stupid rap videos, and they're pretty dumb. Stupid human videos because people like to do stupid things and film them. Or just not very funny comedy. But every now and then, I come across absolute gems on there. And this, believe it or not, is not a video. It's actually a comment that I found. That was a joke. Thank you. I like that. Thank you. Now, this video in which I found this comment under, because for me, going through the website, the comments are gold. Absolute gold. People will say the absolutely most brilliant things, the funniest things you've ever heard, and unfortunately the worst things you've ever heard. But the comments under the video are what make it for me. And under this one video I watched, it was a couple doing what was called, well, Couples Challenge. And we've all seen or heard of these stupid challenge videos, right? You know, I think what's the popular one out now? Bone Gang? People just run out and take stuff. And you hear how some people hype and get so hyper just hearing it. And it was essentially the same thing with this video. And as I'm going through the comments and reading through, this one jumped out. And it was so good I had to email the guy and let him know I'm keeping it, using it in the presentation. But he goes on to say, and this entire comment is the crux of this entire presentation. And I'm not dumbing down any of my vocabulary for any of you. Y'all are smart enough to know, and I am not going to belittle you by thinking that you don't know what I'm talking about. I'm pushing your intelligence level way beyond any type of assumption, so excuse me. With that said, the guy's name's Purple Cabbage Killer. And he says, all these people doing dumb stuff in the streets. Now, I had to edit it for language. Living for that like button. You're going to get messed up one day for the dumb stuff you do. Stop living for yourself. Stop living for others and live for yourself. Social media is going to be your undoing. Oh, you don't have to clap. I emailed him. I'll email him and let him know, but that is definitely not my quote. But when I saw it, it was brilliant. And the reason it's brilliant is because, well, what these people were doing in this video were criminal acts. They were daring each other to do dumber and dumber things. It started off with go jump in a water fountain. Okay, not too bad. But then, since the dude had to do it, the girl dared him to do something else, and then he dared her, and then eventually, excuse me, it came down to them stripping in public and running through a public area. And then it came down to them stealing. Hold on, Lee. Bring it back before we move on. And then it came down to them stealing something from a store. And then it came down to walking up to some random person and pretending that they like him, like hanging on him and doing all kinds of dumb stuff. And what they did was actually quite criminal. Oh yeah, but these are some of the things we don't think about. God bless you. So they filmed all of their criminal acts and put it on the internet for the world to see. See, this is why I start calling these videos stupid. And when I came across this comment, I had to have it. Because we have so many people living for that like button. Because let's face it, that like button, this so-called internet popularity, it's very fleeting. It goes away almost instantly. Because by the time your video gains some traction and becomes quote-unquote viral, the next one is already being made. And that 15 minutes of fame is no longer 15 minutes of fame, it's more like 30 seconds. And at the end of the day, all of those likes that you had on Monday, by Wednesday, what does it mean? Absolutely nothing. So this is why I want you to remember the two rules, the Vanna rule and the gravity rule. If you are too embarrassed, can't show that and have to hide it, can't do it, don't do it. Because what goes up does not come down. Now just take a quick moment to look at these websites. Anybody here, by show of hands, have accounts on these websites?
No. Where's my tape?
The reason I ask is because when you go onto these websites and register for these things, that's also including the messaging apps on the side. We can get a zoom out so we see if that comes in. There we go. Now this list is not a list of the 10 most popular websites. It's a list of 10 of the most trafficked websites. And there's a big difference between popularity and traffic when it comes down to determining popularity of a website. I'm not going to get into that because that'll take too long. But with that said, the reason why I ask is because, does anybody in here have accounts on more than one site, just by show of hands?
No.
All right, how about 3?
Yes.
4?
No.
5, 6, 7, 10. Now, including the ones on the pen.
I have my thing.
The messaging apps, anybody on the account there too? Has anybody ever paid for any of these things? All right, settle down, Hannah, follow. Has anyone ever paid, by show of hands, paid for any of these websites? Hold on, I gotta hear this. No, that's slightly different. I'll give you that one. Now, there's a reason why I ask you this. You might want to pay attention because this is where it starts to get good. everything that you sign up for, everything that you log into, all of these applications, all of these websites, everything you do on them is tracked and saved. Everything that you think disappears after an amount of time does not disappear. Now, I keep telling myself to move this slide over, but I'm going to jump to it really quickly. And it's simply because of this. Has anybody ever stopped and read the terms of service?
Right?
Hold on 1 second, I gotta hear this. Did you read it? And what does it say? You still are a kid. Yes, you are. How about you? Yes, you said you read the terms of service. And what can you tell me about it? I can't hear him. Now, I know you couldn't hear his answer, but it was perfect. And his answer goes on to say that no matter what you do, they put it out there to see. And the terms of service, and this particular example here, I use Snapchat, and I read through all 45 pages. And it goes on to say that anything you do on their website is theirs. Anything you do on their application is theirs. And you can't do anything about it. And the reason is because they take all of these messages, all of these posts, all of these videos, everything you think is gone, and they sell it to, here's where it gets good. They'll sell it to anybody who's willing to pay. Back and forth on the question. And the reason is, remember how I asked a minute ago who pays for any of this stuff? Well, all of these companies are getting money from advertising agencies, government agencies, stores, retail agencies, every place you could possibly think of. Believe it or not, whenever you use one of these applications, you're not the consumer, you're the product. Yes, ma'am. The question is if you message somebody, do they keep it? Yes. If you can read the third paragraph at the bottom, don't worry, I'll abbreviate it for you. This is from page 15. And it goes on to say that you must be 13 or older to install the application, but 18 or older to use its services. And what are the services? Messaging, facial filters, video sharing, all these other things. The only thing you can really do with Snapchat, supposedly, if you're under 18, is to load it up and look at those ridiculously stupid news articles attached to it. I feel dumber for reading those articles whenever I go on there. Yes? Yeah, that's exactly right. You don't buy one picture, you buy thousands and 1,000, and it's like $10 a book. So you have to buy a minimum of 1,000 for those. Hold on, I can't hear the questions. Yes. So now that you start thinking about what is actually happening with your profiles, I want you to keep this in mind as you go on during your vacations, as you go on to spend and hang out with your friends and family. Keep in mind that it's fine, it's perfectly okay to send and receive messages, videos, and pictures and things like that. However, keep your clothes on. Because as you already know now, this stuff is out there. Alright, I have a question in the back here. I'd like to be able to hear it. Yes. Yes. All right, the question was, can text messages be retrieved? Those are ridiculously easy to be retrieved. It takes me a matter of minutes. Now, I do enjoy all the questions, but let me go ahead and move on. We get one more, yes. Again, since everyone is asking generally the same question, when it comes down to using Snapchat, when it comes to using Snapchat, everything gets saved. And they save it to their server. It does not go away. Yes? Everything. Now, the reason I want you to think about this, and I do mean everything, is because they tell you exactly what they're going to do. But, you know, I'll skip it since, you know, you have the conversation. Now, before we get to the good stuff, we may not get to it because we're going to run out of time. And the reason we have to bring this up is it becomes full circle. And we've all heard the term cyberbullying before, right?
No.
Great, so I don't need to explain the definition of it. But when it comes down to using services such as Snapchat or Facebook Messenger or anything like that, you guys and girls are in a new era that I didn't have to deal with growing up. Now, when I grew up, it was before the age of the internet being with us all the time. And when I got into fights at school, by the time I got home and closed the door, that was it. That was the end of it. On to the next day. But since now we have cell phones and laptops and tablets everywhere, you can't get away from it. From the moment you close your door and you think you're isolated from the rest of the world, you hop online, start checking messages, and up comes a message, and then another one, and then a post. And somebody says this, and somebody replies to that. And the next thing you know, what started off as one small thing rolls down a hill and becomes one giant problem. Now the good thing is one of the consequences that I have seen we have not experienced in Cumberland County, and I hope we never do, which is school shootings. We've come close a few times because some people have just been too angry to deal with things. Now another thing that we have not had to deal with much in Cumberland County, thank goodness, is suicide. And your age group is about the time the numbers that the feds keep begin to grow. So between the ages of 12 to 18, suicide rates over the last 10 years have doubled, tripled, and quadrupled. Why? Because of cyberbullying. Now, there's a very easy way you can combat it. And I'm not saying you need to be anybody's best friend. But if you know somebody who's getting bullied, check up on them, see how they're doing. If you are unsure of what to do, let an adult know. Find somebody who you can confide in and let them know, and hopefully they can do something. How would you like to know that somebody's life or death is in the palm of your hands? You know, you got to think of these things as well. Now, one of the other crazy things we have to deal with is the fallout of cyberbullying. And one of the fallout of cyberbullying, of course, is when couples break up. And a lot of the problems that I have seen, I'll wait, because I guess your conversations are way more important. One of the biggest issues with couples that break up are simply that they thought they were going to be together forever. A perfect example is I use my own family as my example. A couple of years ago, before my sister-in-law passed away, I was doing this presentation at Boston High School, New York. And she was a senior at the time, and she and her boyfriend were sitting about 5 rows from the front. And at the time, they were dating for about a year and some change. And I asked her, I stood her up right in the middle of the auditorium. I said, Nice, how long are you and your boy going to be together? We're going to be together forever. I said, okay, I'm glad y'all are ambitious, but here's what I think. I give you about 6 months. And right after I said that, the entire place went ballistic. People are clowning them, some are clowning me, back and forth. We had a good laugh at it. But to skip a few down the road, I was wrong. It wasn't 6 months, it was 4. But here's the kicker. As they were dating, they shared pictures back and forth with each other.
You were the most immature.
And the pictures that they shared, luckily both of them kept their clothes on and it wasn't crazy, so we got to. But here's what happened. Within 20 to 30 minutes of them breaking up, these pictures shared like wildfire. What started off between 2 people quickly went through the entire school. And what made it so bad is my sister at the time, she was in a couple movies and had her own radio show and was working on auditions with Disney. So what happens is that all of these pictures, all of these conversations and messages that are shared could become something that messes up her future. So don't let that same thing happen to any of you because you've got to send somebody this picture because they love you or you love them. By all means, send them a picture, but keep your clothes on. Because unfortunately, in the state of New Jersey, there are some laws that directly affect you. Not your friends, not your family, but you. And if you are under the age of 18, if you are under the age of 18 and you take a picture of yourself, nude, scantily clad in a provocative pose, you have now just created child pornography. If you send that picture to someone, you have now distributed child pornography. If in turn they share it, or show someone, they're now distributing child pornography, and everyone else who is in hold or custody of it is in possession of child pornography. This is why I must enforce you to remember the NANA rule. Because with that, you can get arrested, you can get some jail time, and not only that is the connotation of being labeled as a sex offender and having to register under Megan's law. Now, I'll get into that momentarily, but suffice to say that I want you to remember these things. Now, of course, the reason why I bring this all up, excuse me, is going back to the cyberbullying side. Because let's say a picture of you gets out and somebody wants to send it as revenge. Because let's face it, it happens. There was one case where nearly an entire 5th grade class was under investigation with potential to be charged. Oh, you heard it correctly, 5th grade. And that entire class was nearly brought up on charges because of a bad breakup between a boyfriend and a girlfriend. Hold on, I got a question in. Yes. Did everybody hear the laws in New Jersey? There's a lot of side conversations, so I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear. Because I'd rather talk to you now than coming to knock on your door. Because if I'm coming to knock on your door, it's generally not a good thing. So please, by all means, I'd rather you listen down. You don't want me knocking on your door. I'm not very nice. And because I'm a small person, I have to go much harder than someone who's larger than me. So I'm purposely not very nice. Now, another thing, and I accidentally pressed the button, I didn't want to go to this slide. One of the things that we do have to think about when it comes to cyberbullying is that, fellas, you generally are pretty much in the clear for the most part. For the most part. Don't start celebrating. You sit next to a female, they don't forget. So, but here's the thing that I've learned throughout all of my studies and my travels, and having girls of my own. I'm going to stand back here so I can see anything that you thrown at me. Fellas, don't cheer, don't celebrate. You've been warned. Matter of fact, show no emotion. Ready? Girls can be extremely evil. Celebrated. I told you not to. Now, with that said, the reason I bring this up is because girls are 80% more opportune to cyberbullying. And it usually starts off with female on female based on whatever drama they have going on. And then a dude jumps in trying to clown, trying to impress a girl, but it doesn't generally work that way. And then it goes on. But here's the kicker, as I mentioned earlier, is that when I was a kid, I had the liberty of closing the door and being the end of it. You guys and girls don't have that luxury. So this is why I want you to remember the nana rule, because what goes around can come around very quickly. Now this is a subject a lot of people are like, oh my goodness. And my time is running short, so let me get through this. My time is running extremely short, so I got to speed up a little bit. The reason why we have to talk about this is because as y'all move on to the next grades, as you move on to the next grades in the high school and everything, you're going to be exposed to a lot more craziness. A lot of people coming in from different areas, different backgrounds, brand new people. People who think they gotta live for that like button, who they gotta be so popular, and they gotta be the center of attention for every little thing. But let's remember the nano rule. Pretty much everything nowadays that we do is being recorded. And what I would love for all of you to do is to remember these things as you go along. So if you know somebody who just has to put too much information on the internet, just check them and say, look, you don't have to put that out there. I mean, it's fine if you want to tell somebody about what you ate for the day, but nobody needs to know what color underwear you're wearing. Nobody needs to see it. Nobody needs to hear about it. That's why they're called private clothes, underclothes. No one needs to be kept aware of what's going on.
Out the bar.
One major thing that I've been seeing a lot of lately is identity theft involving minors. And it's usually around this age group that gets hit the most. Unfortunately, the age group that gets hit the most is it's 8 to 17. And identity theft involving minors usually involves somebody with a bill in your name or a utility in your name, which sometimes is from family. But in some cases, it's because of what you do online. So for example, as I mentioned earlier, that one of my specialties is computer mobile forensics. Well, one other thing I like to do is undercover work. And it stems from my very first undercover case when I started my job. And it was in the summer, I'm not going to give the year, but it was the summertime, and I'm sitting at my desk writing out a report from something else I was working on, and I get a call, a frantic call from my sergeant. Watkins, get in here quick, you gotta get in here quick, gotta take care of this. So I said, all right, no problem. And I get up and I go to my sergeant's office and I ask him, I say, dude, what's going on? He says, well, we just got a call in from a grandmother. She was watching her granddaughter and she walked by the room and noticed that a video was playing on her machine. That was absolutely disgusting. And what happened is she called the police department forwarded over to me. So they said, this is a live case, we don't know who it is, go work your magic. And so I assumed this girl's identity, and for 2 weeks I became a 13-year-old white girl. And I played it well. And as I talked to this joker for the next 2 weeks, he began to send me all kinds of messages, all kinds of pictures and videos and things he was just being absolutely disgusting about. The things he would say, unbelievable. The things he wanted me to do, insane. But so to make a long story short, after 2 weeks of talking with this guy, he wanted to meet up. And so we agreed to meet in a park, but instead of him meeting this 13-year-old girl, he met several of my coworkers and was promptly arrested that day. Now, the story doesn't end there. As I was preparing paperwork and court orders and search warrants, get everything done, we're heading out to the scene. I get to the location of where everything is supposed to take place. I get out my car and I'm looking around, I'm like, this area looks real familiar. Real familiar. And then it hit me. This is the house where I'm at. We go around the corner, all the way to that back corner, is my front door. My very first undercover. How crazy is that? Now, as I mentioned earlier, I have 3 girls. This was a 35-year-old man trying to solicit a 13-year-old girl. My oldest at the time was 13. He wasn't going after her. But it put everything in perspective. You got to be very careful with what we put out online, especially now that you're so comfortable with sharing and messaging and sending, because you don't know where it's going to end up. You may think you're sending into your boo, but it ain't going straight to just them. But wait, there's more. few weeks later, I decide I need to take a day off, stay home, because why not? Had my feet up on the couch, watching some Maury. Right before that envelope comes out, I see a car drive by I don't recognize. Now, a little bit of info about me, I'm very neurotic when it comes to my neighborhoods. Because after that first search warrant, I got completely messed up. So now I need to know all of my neighbors. I need to know their cars, their schedules. I know all of their walking schedules and working schedules. I know who's supposed to be and what time they're supposed to be there. I know who's got what kids and when their grandkids come to visit. Yeah, I became a little crazy from it. Because if my girls are playing outside, oh, you best believe I'm going to know everything about it. And so I'm sitting at home and I got my feet up and I see this car go by and I'm like, who in the world is this? And at the time I was living in a condo, so I had a shared driveway. So I run upstairs, I grab my badge and my gun, I'm like, all right, if they about to rob them, cool, we going down to the blazing glory. So I get out and I introduce myself to two gentlemen getting out this black Impala. I said, how you doing? I'm Detective Watkins. I'm off duty right now. You're at my neighbor's house. I want to know what's going on. I said, oh, hey, how you doing? We're from another prosecutor's office up in North Jersey. I said, oh, man, sweet. What's going on? I said, well, your neighbor was just arrested for soliciting a minor. I said, are you kidding me? He said, no. I said, but he was such a nice dude. He said, yeah, that's how it always is. My neighbor was the cleanest cut dude you would ever meet. Never had a hair out of place, wore ridiculously expensive glasses, could dress like nobody's business, beautiful clothes on, kept everything perfect. His lawn was always perfect, everything in order. He's been in my house around my kids and my family. He has grilled and we had cookouts together. He cut my grass, I cut his grass. When I got snowed in the hospital during multiple blizzards when my baby was born, he shoveled my driveway so perfectly that it didn't even look like it snowed. He was a great dude by all accounts. Until that day, he was arrested for soliciting a 14-year-old. You do not know what your pictures, your messages are going. You don't know. You may think it's between one or two people, but it's not. You got to remember the two rules. The first rule is the Nana rule. If you can't show Nana, do you do it? I think only a couple people over here understood it. The Nana rule is, if you are too embarrassed, have to hide it, can't show Nana, do not do it. Because what goes up does not come down. There are dozens upon dozens of websites dedicated to what people pull off of Snapchat. Dozens. So if you think that you're safe because you're using something that disappears, it does not disappear. Now I'm very quickly going to blaze through this Instagram side because unfortunately, this crap happens. We have suicide attempts, we have cutting attempts, we have exposed sites put up there. We have all kinds of stupidity going on Instagram. We've all heard the term Instagram dots. Why the Instagram dots? Because people are putting themselves out there. Again, you are not the consumer, you are the product. By show of hands, anybody here want to get robbed? And of course, there's always somebody who raises their hand. I'm joking. Nobody really wants to get robbed. But because of what we do online, it happens a lot. Who here likes to brag about what they have? Show off. Way underground. Yeah, you put your hands up. about living for that like button, about social media being your undoing. These are some of the consequences of people living for that like button because they have to show off, because they want everybody to believe they're living this fantasy life that really is only attainable to some. That they got thousands upon thousands of dollars that they just don't care about and throw around. That they just got to show off. I got all this money. Holding it up to your head. My money talks to me. Swinging, waving around. One of my favorite Snapchat stories. This guy hops on Snapchat. He's waving around $25,000 worth of cash. He's stunting, he's flossing, whatever you want to call it. He got money back and forth, he's waving. 15 minutes later, he posts up another Snapchat story. It's covered in blood. Yeah, I just got robbed. So you went from $25,000 cash in your hand, playing around with it, to zero. Because these things keep track of everywhere you go. And it's very easy to recover that data. Now, of course, my time is running extremely short. This is really why I implore you to use the nano rule. Again, it's perfectly fine to send pictures and videos and messages, but use your brain about it. There's a lot more stories of people doing stupid things, putting it on the internet, and having to deal with the consequences. Bank robberies, which, one thing I don't understand, these 4 girls decided to rob a bank, and then posted it on Facebook. If you're going to be involved in criminal behavior, please keep doing that. Please keep posting. I think it's cool. Now, I know I'm going back and forth over a bunch of things. This is one area that I wish I could spend more time on, but because my time is extremely limited, I'm going to very quickly breeze through it. And all of these conversations only slow me down. Your phones, the applications, and everything you do on them are designed to make you addicted to them. So learning how to turn a phone off and put it down is a hard thing to do. Because a lot of us, the first thing we do when we wake up is check our phone. But one thing I implore you to do is to separate yourself from this technology so that we don't experience oversharing. So you don't have to worry about getting robbed or putting all your information out there. Because if you can learn to separate yourself from your phone long enough, or whatever device you're using long enough, the nano rule becomes inherent. You don't overshare, you change your habits, and there, protect yourself. Unfortunately, in closing, there are a few reasons why. Now, I mentioned a few minutes ago the laws, and I'm going to leave them up there. But a very good friend of mine lost his dream job because of things that were posted on the internet. And what happened is he spent a good 10 years preparing himself for this job. He made sure he had the right friends. He made sure his background was clean. He didn't do certain things. He didn't go certain places. And he made sure he was ready. He was in great shape for it, and he prepared. He took all the practice tests. He was ready. Fills out the application, gets through everything. He's number 2 on their hiring list. He gets into the interview, and as they start his background, they call him up and say, look, dude, we're going to have to deny you. So he calls me up and he's extremely angry. He says, well, why could they do that? I said, well, what came up in your background? A YouTube video. Now, it wasn't anything crazy. He was just hanging out with his friends. And what do we do when we hang out with our friends? We sit down and we crack jokes on each other. We make fun of each other constantly. However, because of what was said in the video, even though they laughed it off, this denied him his dream job, his future. He had to go a different route. He got derailed. We have to be very careful with these things. A lot of colleges now are taking into account your social media profiles. A lot of places now are looking at these pictures that you have up there. If you have red cups in there, well, guess what they're not going to hire or accept into their school? The one with all of these party pictures and whatnot. So remember, in closing, I'm sorry I'm running out of time, you got to remember the 2 rules. The first one is the Nana rule. If Nana doesn't approve of it, do you post it? No. If you have to hide it from Nana, do you post it? No. Why? Because what goes up, not come down. Thank you.